Hello, BookTube. I wanted to give you a quick announcement video. I've already mentioned Book Trek 2023 to you on this channel, but there wasn't an official announcement video because I was waiting on our dauntless captain, Vin at Revenant Reads, to announce the whole event. And he has now done that, so I want to make an announcement video of my own for the summer of Trek. Book Trek will be all summer long. For me, that makes perfect sense. For me, that aligns perfectly with my own experience. Star Trek has always been a summer thing for me. I read it in the summer more so than I do at any point in the year. I've watched it mostly in the summer. I associate those movies with the summertime. The TV show, just all of it. I don't know why. I'm sure that it's different for other people, but for me, the idea of having Star Trek fiction running throughout the whole summer with an extra emphasis feels perfectly natural. And that's what we're going to do for Book Trek 2023. It's June, July, and August. And as I mentioned in my upcoming June events video, to be a part of this, all you have to do is read Star Trek. That's all you have to do. You just have to read some Star Trek. A short story, a novel, or one of the away missions that we have for Book Trek 2023. We have the usual one, which is an away mission can be in addition to reading Star Trek fiction, you also read a work of science. But we've added another away mission, which is to read a book by someone connected with Star Trek, a memoir, a show biography, something like that. Almost every one of the major stars of Star Trek has written some sort of nonfiction account of their life and times or of their life with the show or whatnot. There are plenty to choose from if you want to go that route. Most of them are awful. You just have to be ready for that. But then again, most celebrity memoirs of any kind are awful, so you just have to expect that. Even with the ones that you really want to like. There have been several examples of those that I could come up with. I'm not going to be doing an away mission like that. The closest that I would come would be to read hallowed, old nonfiction accounts of Star Trek. And I did that last year. I read Star Trek Lives. Reread it for the first time in a long time last year. So I don't need to, I'm going to stick to fiction this year. But that is another away mission for you. If you want to read George Takei's memoir, that will definitely count for Book Trek. So, but the main thing is just a very general, very loose, very casual thing. You have all summer long to read some Star Trek. I'm not going to impose any greater order than that myself. I will be doing all kinds of reading for Star Trek, with the sole exception of Star Trek Discovery, which I'm going to pretend doesn't exist. For the purposes of Book Trek 2023 and probably all other Book Treks, I'm going to pretend that Star Trek Discovery and the first 2 seasons of Star Trek Picard don't exist. They've never happened. That is not going to be true for Star Trek Prodigy. That is not going to be true for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's not going to be true for the 3rd season of Picard. There was a little blip. I'm going to hope that it is a contained blip where the showrunners got to indulge themselves in new Trek hatred of old Trek. We hate Star Trek. We hate all that it stands for. We especially hate its fans. And we're going to craft whole seasons, spend millions of dollars in order to indulge in that hatred. I would like to think that that is over with. The fans almost universally hated those things. And whenever those things, the things that were made that way, were put into competition in an open and measurable forum with anything that wasn't made that way, they failed dramatically. They lost money and hurt the brand. I would like to think that there are people, creative and money people, higher up in the studio who saw that and thought, well, then we won't do that anymore. if that is hated by fans and loses money by the bucket load, then we won't do it anymore. I'd like to think that would be true. It would be nice if that obtained. Certainly, it seems to be true, judging by Star Trek: Strange New Worlds and also by the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. Certainly, if I look at those 2 things, I can sort of think, well, maybe it is. Maybe that was just a horrible fever that had to break. But it did lead to a huge amount of Star Trek, and I'm just going to ignore that Star Trek. I'm going to concentrate on everything else. But there's a lot of other stuff to concentrate on, including the 5 iterations of classic Roddenberry-era Star Trek. 6, if you count the animated series. There's the original series, there's the Next Generation, there's Deep Space Nine, there's Voyager, and there's Star Trek Enterprise. With Star Trek Enterprise, in which the captain of the Enterprise, the very first captain of the Enterprise, has a dog on board ship, and the dog is a beagle. As I mentioned in Book Trek for 2021 and 2022, when that scene first aired on TV, I still had a telephone, an ordinary telephone, and I got probably 100 calls in an hour. People just, it was one call after, the minute I hung up, the phone would ring. The minute I hung up, the phone would ring. One call after another from people all over the world saying, oh my God, who did you have to pay? The first captain of the Enterprise has a beagle on board the ship. It's not that the beagle's at home and there's a picture on his desk. The beagle is in his cabin. So I've mentioned already on this channel my provisional plan for the beginning of Book Trek, which is to reread. I'm going to reread slowly and in depth. I'm going to give them, as much attention as they deserve. The stories that James Blish wrote, adapted from the television screenplays of the original episodes. They came out one after another in mass market paperbacks. Those paperbacks sold really well and ended up in libraries everywhere, in used bookstores everywhere. They had a huge dissemination. And a lot of Star Trek fans found them very early on in their love of the show. I did. A lot of other people did too. And I've read them endlessly over the years, and I like I said in my June announcement video, they've never really done much for me, and I've always written that down to the fact that they can't do much. Blish wasn't allowed to innovate much. And also to the fact that Blish himself as an author, just in general, has never done it for me. I am now going to address both of those. I'm going to see everything that can be extracted from those original stories. And as a side juncture that has nothing to do with Book Trek, I'm going to reassess James Blish as an author just in general, not Star Trek fiction. I don't think I'll go so far as to read Spock Must Die again. I don't think I'll do that. But I'll read all the stories and delve into them. I've always been a little short-tempered with the excuse that Blish, that I just repeated, the excuse that Blish really couldn't express any kind of creativity because he had to stick to the script. Because we know that's not true. Because Alan Dean Foster got the significantly worse scripts for the animated series. He stuck true to the script of the animated series and made great stories out of it. 10 times better than the James Blish books. So, for his Star Trek log books. So we know that can be done. Hell, I can do it myself. And I'm no great writer. But if you gave me the script of, I don't even know, pick an original episode, the Galileo 7. If you gave me the script, just the script, and you said you can add as much exposition here as you want, provided it doesn't conflict with continuity, but you have to have every line of dialogue and every beat of drama that's in the show. You have to include all of that. This has to be a faithful rendering of the screenplay, but you can add anything more that you want. I could make a novel out of that would be terrific reading, a lot better than James Blish's story along those lines. I have always excused that by saying that he wrote those Star Trek stories at speed for money. I could be wrong about all of this. But I'm going to start Book Trek 2023 with a reassessment of those stories. And then I'll move on from there to my usual pattern in Book Trek, which is to read a book and then tell you about it. Read another book and then tell you about it. Read another book and then tell you about it. There will be copious digressions of a theoretical nature, where I talk about the nature of Star Trek and all the reasons why I love it and the things I hate about it, and maybe even some discussions of movies. That might be a lot of fun as well. But mainly it will be books. I will just be reading a ton of Star Trek all summer long. And we have a great cast of co-hosts here. Of course, we have Vin at Revenant Reads, and we have Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic, and we have Brandy at The Book Collectic, and Michael K. Vaughan. And myself. And the rest of my co-hosts tend to be very busy. They have very busy lives. They have loved ones and family and responsible professions and personal hygiene and pants. I don't have any of those, so I'll probably be making more videos than they will, but it doesn't take much to get me to talk about Star Trek anyway, so that would be inevitable in any case. But anyway, that is the announcement. It is the summer of Trek. It is 3 months of Star Trek. So if you've got Star Trek novels sitting around, feel free to haul them down and revisit them. If you haven't revisited the show in a while, find some iteration of the show and revisit it. On your the the unedited cuts on your streaming services, the streaming services that you subscribe to. I don't remember off the top of my head right now where the original Star Trek is on streaming. Is it on Amazon? Is it on Hulu? Is it on Netflix? I don't quite remember. I have a whole suite of those kinds of streaming services. So, wherever it is, I'll be able to watch a lot of Star Trek during the course of the summer. And I may do individual episode reviews as well. That would also be a lot of fun, I think. So lots and lots of Star Trek content coming your way this summer. Feel free to join in. Just the one thing I will not be doing, the one thing I will not be discussing, even to rant about it, is Star Trek Discovery. I'm just going to pretend that it doesn't exist. I'm just going to pull it right out of the timeline and just not think about it. But everything else, is fair game, including and maybe a nice long video about the third season of Star Trek Picard. I have a lot to say about that season, but it'll be a free-for-all and it'll be lots of fun. So this is just a second video to remind you that the summer of Trek is right upon us. It's only 10 days away. So make your own Trek plans and tell me all about them. I want to know all about them. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.